Hello there, we are live from our studios here in Kokomlimle. Our digital address is GA099242539. This is your home of fearless, credible and independent journalism. Our lead stories this hour. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta expected in Parliament a few minutes from now to answer questions as to whether or not President Akufo-Addo spent 2.8 million taxpayers' cedis to travel a journey that the presidential jet could have easily covered. We're live in Parliament as we hear from aviation experts also. And a push for the arrest and prosecution of persons responsible for leakage of West African Examination Council questions last year. We hear from education think tank Africa Education Watch, which has published how the leakages occurred after their investigations. 7 months after 2 people were killed in a shootout at Techiman by security forces to dispel a crowd at a voting center, Interior Minister Ambrose Derry visits the family with a promise to secure justice for the deceased. We hear what the minister actually said and also talk to some of the family members. And a 56-year-old man has been burned to death in a midnight fire which gutted 10 rooms of a story building at Asafo in Kumasi. We're live in the region now for details. Join us on DSTV 421, Go TV 144. The Pulse is brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu, affordable, safe sanitation. We're streaming live on YouTube, by the way. My name is Gifty Ando Apia. This is The Pulse. Please be my guest. A 56-year-old man has been burned to death in a midnight fire which gutted 10 rooms of a story building at Asafo in Kumasi today. 9 other tenants, including some aged women, have been displaced. Erastus Asari Donko is joining me from Kumasi. Hello, Erastus. Give us more details about this sad incident. Hello, Erastus. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. The network is a bit bad, but I hope you can hear me too.
I do. Please go ahead.
Great. So we are at the scene of the fire. We just left there. It's a one-story structure, and the top of the structure has 11 rooms, and 10 of them were gutted by the fire around midnight today. We do understand that this 56-year-old man occupied a chamber and hall at the top of the structure, and the fire started from his room. And so neighbors around could hear him shouting for help, that he was burning and people should come to his aid. But according to them, the way the inferno was raging, there was no way they could enter the room. So one of them tried to break open his door. By the time they broke the door, air entered and the flames engulfed the entire structure, so there was no way they could even bring him out. They found out later that he has been burnt beyond recognition. So one person has been burnt. There are other 9 tenants. Most of them are elderly women. They were all at the top floor, but they managed to escape the inferno. But then the fire did not spare their belongings. And so currently, as we speak, they have gathered in front of the building. Some of them, they do not have a place to stay. Many of their belongings are burnt.
Erastus, what do we know about this person who has died? Do we have any information at all about him?
Well, so we know that he's a 56-year-old air-conditioned repairer. They call him Kojo Fojo Samuel. Kojo Fojo. They popularly call him Off J. In the area. And just before today's incident, they say that yesterday he went to a friend's party and he danced extraordinarily, and people were even asking why he was so happy, only to realize that he's been burnt to ashes at
Erastus, if you can, yes,
close to the Asafo.
Erastus, I lost you there briefly. Can you summarize what you said before you went off about this 56-year-old? I heard up until the point where you said he went to, he had gone for a party, and all. But I lost you from there on.
Well, so yesterday, Friends Party yesterday, and danced so heartily that people started asking why he was so happy, only to learn this morning that, in fact, he has been bent to them and he has suffered this fate. So it's a shock to many about the man who yesterday people spotted him in such a hurry to meet this a tragic fate.
Erastus, thank you very much for the details on that very disturbing story there. Erastus Asare Donko, one person has died. We understand a 56-year-old man has died when fire gutted the building in which he lived. 9 other people have been displaced. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is expected in Parliament this afternoon to respond to questions on how much President Akufo-Addo's latest foreign trip cost the taxpayer. Minority spokesperson on Foreign Affairs Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa is alleging that government spent 2.8 million cedis on hiring a private jet for the trips instead of using the presidential jet. Mr. Ablakwa filed a question demanding answers from the minister, which the minister will be answering today. Mind you, he had previously filed other questions that the defense minister had to answer. While the defense minister, Dominic Nitiwu, has been engaging him on the matter. We'll be live in Parliament to hear from the finance minister. Also, we'll be hearing from an aviation expert who is insisting that the current presidential aircraft is capable of making non-stop trips across Europe. But then, what is the history behind this presidential jet that is being discussed, the Falcon 900? We'll be talking to, like I said, we'll be hearing from the aviation expert. We'll be going to Parliament to talk to my colleague Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, as well as hear from the finance minister, who is part of the ministers who are supposed to be answering questions that were filed by Okudzeto-Ablakwa. But let's begin with a report put together by my colleague Elton Broby, cataloguing the history and controversy surrounding the presidential jet so far.
Former President John Agyekum Kufuor in 2007, both tired and scared by his 35-year-old presidential jet, widely termed as a flying coffin, took steps to order a new one. But the large spending on presidential luxury in an otherwise poor country did not meet much understanding. The Ghanaian opposition NDC cried foul and urged President Kufuor to cancel the unnecessary order. He did not. After the NDC came to power following the 2008 elections and the late John Evans Atta Mills inaugurated his presidency in 2009, many expected him and the new parliamentary majority of the NDC to cancel the order. They did not. Instead, the order was somehow redefined. After a string of postponement, the aircraft, which became the subject of heated discourse between the MPP and the then opposition NDC in 2008, finally made its entry into Ghana on Thursday, September 30th, 2010. The current aircraft has had its own challenges. Former President John Mahama experienced its ugly side in 2014 and 2015 in the air. President Akufo-Addo had similar experience after attending the United Nations General Assembly in New York, USA. Information Minister Kojo Oponkoma explains more.
I can confirm to you that yes, there was a challenge with the presidential jet. After about 20 minutes into the flight from Washington to Accra, and the pilot informed the passengers, including the president, accordingly.
11 years down the line, the controversy over presidential jet and travels are back in the news. Member of Parliament for Northton Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa is rejecting government justification for renting a luxury private jet for President Akufo-Addo.
The Dassault Falcon 900 EX is an impressive private jet with ranges of over 5,000 nautical miles. It is ideal for transoceanic and transcontinental trips. So this is a long-haul flight. So these excuses, with all due respect, cannot hold.
But Defense Minister Dominic Nitiwu says a much bigger aircraft is the answer to the current debate.
One of the few countries that has not been able to do that is Ghana. And I also said, look, the African Continental Free Trade, they've asked the Air Force 3 times to help them bring VIPs. We couldn't because we don't have an appropriate aircraft. And so that question gave us the opportunity to make our case to the people of Ghana.
Alton Broby filed that report, while aerospace expert Dr. Akparibu Yakubu says the current presidential aircraft, the Falcon 900, is designed and capable of making non-stop trips to almost all of Europe. he has described as untenable government's justification for the hiring of a luxury private jet for use by President Akufo-Addo during his recent official visit to some European countries. Well, the Defense Minister Dominic Nitiwo has justified that decision, saying the safety of the president, as you heard in that story, as well as the capacity of the aircraft were paramount in hiring that particular aircraft. We'll hear from the aerospace experts, but here is Dominic Nitiwo speaking to my colleague Evans Mensah.
You see, nobody in this enterprise, especially me, has said that President is not comfortable in the Falcon. Never. There's no part of my statement I've ever said that. I've not also heard anybody say that President Akufo-Addo says he's not comfortable. Please, I don't want that statement to be attributed, especially to me. I've never said that, and I'll not say that. Our president is using the aircraft. When he came, he used the aircraft around, and he's still using, even today, he's using the aircraft. So it is not a true story for anybody to say that he says he's not comfortable using, it's not comfortable for him. It's not true. It's not true.
So why do you choose that luxury then?
I'm coming, please. I'll come to that. This aircraft that we have has had at least 2 engine failures. You were right when you said that. It has also had a battery failure. It's 11 years. Even it can be new, I have that, but I'm just giving you the history of this aircraft. That it is not as if this aircraft is so pristine. Even if it is new, you can have a problem, but I'm just giving you the fact that it has had 2 engine failures, it has had a battery failure.
Dominic Nitiwo is Defense Minister. He was speaking to Evans Mensah last night on PM Express. Well, on the same show, the NDC MP for North Tong, Okujeto Ablakwa, in whose name the question stood in Parliament, says his side was not convinced by the answers provided by the Defense Minister.
The other excuse about freshening up and all of that. Look, Accra to Paris, 6.5 hours. I don't believe that the president, when he's working in Ghana as president, he showers every 6.5 hours. I don't think he does that. The president is not a continent. He doesn't do that. I don't think so. So we are not helping the president when we argue that way. Now, what has been happening, and I've been, as I've told you, on these presidential jets from President Mills and then President Mahama. An hour to arrival, your Air Force commanders will do the announcement. They will come and tap the commander-in-chief, say we are landing in an hour. Then they will usher him. He would have a warm towel to freshen up, and he's ready to meet the welcome party. They provide tea because there's microwave on board. If you viewers can go to the website of Dassault Falcon.
Okujeto Ablakwa speaks for the minority on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Well, let's hear from Dr. Yakubu Akpaibu, who says that the presidential jet is capable of doing the same job that this rented plane did.
Current presidential jet, the Falcon 900, can make such a trip. I don't know why the president didn't use it. I don't know if it had technical issues like they had a problem in Washington before. But if not, with the Falcon 900, if you have like regular maintenance, it can go even more than 20 years and it will still function like new. So I had problems why the aircraft should have technical issues when it's about 11 years old now. If the maintenance is done properly, that aircraft should function like new. It shouldn't have a problem.
So the suggestion then is that perhaps it was poorly maintained?
Yeah, if it's proven that the aircraft really has technical issues, then that means the maintenance schedules are not being followed properly. So if you look at what he called, it's more like the top of the range. It's like you going to rent a car, you are given, you have a Toyota, a Mercedes, and then a Rolls Royce, and then you go and pick the Rolls Royce. You know, so that is what happened in this case. So the president could have gone for a less expensive charter than this particular aircraft. If we are hiring like it's a King Air is a very small aircraft. It's more like the Falcon 900 range. If you hire that in Ghana here, we normally pay around 6,000.
Yakubu Akpaibu there, he's an aviation expert, speaking to my colleague Daniel Dazi. Well, we'll be crossing over to Parliament as and when the Finance Minister shows up, so we can get answers to the questions that have been filed by Okujetu Ablakwa, the Honourable Member of Parliament for North Tong. Before we were still waiting, so we just move on for now. Well, the Minister for Interior and Member of Parliament for Nandom, Ambrose Derry, says some measures are being taken to secure justice for persons who suffered brutalities in the Techiman South constituency following the 2020 general elections. The minister is in the area to visit the bereaved families as well as some victims who sustained injuries during the polls. I'll be talking to my colleague Anas Sabit, who has been covering that trip for us. But first, listen to the Interior Minister.
That I would have to visit the bereaved families to extend our condolences, to commiserate with them, and to assure them that the investigation into the incident is ongoing. I'm briefed from time to time of the progress. And at the end of the investigation, whoever is found culpable will face the full rigors of the law. But today, I have come to go and greet the families, to let them know there's an incredible incident, that they lost their relatives, and therefore our relatives, and to assure them that nothing will be left if the investigations find anybody culpable. So, having come, I know that I have to meet the Zongo chief and the imams, try to meet the chief, we met the traditional council, and I've come to tell you that this is what I'm coming to do, and I want you to give me your blessings and your prayers to be able to do that. So thank you very much.
That's Ambrose Derry, the Interior Minister. My colleague Anas Sabit, who has been following that trip there to Techiman, is joining me via Zoom. Hello, Anas. Anas, it's been 7 months since the elections. How was the minister received?
Well, he is amongst a number of officials who have visited the families since the incident. You know, the former regional minister has been there a number of times. The municipal chief executive have been there also, and the member of parliament for the area, Martin Damien Sakosa, have visited them a number of times. But for the interior minister, this is the first time he is visiting the bereaved families plus the injured. This is because when the incident happened, as he was a candidate then, and so according to him, the IGP during elections is in charge of the security of the country, so he couldn't have visited after the incident. And after the incident, he was reappointed by the president as the minister. He went through the vetting. This is the time he had the opportunity to visit them. First, he visited the Council of Muslim Chiefs, and then the regional imam and other sub-imams, the Techiman Municipal Central Mosque, where he passed through them to create the indulgence of the families that he was visiting them. So that made his visit acceptable by the people, and they were quite happy that he has taken this up, because for him, his visit is not like the others who came, even though they were all coming for the same purpose. He is here to assure families that justice will be served to them. All the officers or people who may be culpable, found culpable after the investigations, will be made to face the full rigors of the law according to him. And so he's giving them his full assurance that government is taking this up, even though, like you rightly said, it's been 7 months. He says enough investigations are on, and he called on the families plus anyone in the public who has any information that could help with investigations to come up and then help with the security agencies to get to the bottom of this.
And now let me just find out from you whether or not the family members of the deceased, whether he met them directly, and what did they say?
Yes, he did. There have been two persons died. He's able to visit both families, Tajuddin, Mohammed, and then one Ayarik. He visited first the Ayarik family, and he gave them, like I said earlier, his assurance that authorities are taking this up and justice will be served. From there, he visited the other family, the family of Tajuddin, who also lost his life through the incident, and then gave them same assurance before he met other victims who survived, but who received various degrees of injuries through the shootings that happened. He also told them that government is taking this up, and the silence over the time doesn't mean justice is not going to be served. And they also assured them that the authorities are going to ensure that their bills are going to be taken care of, and also they will be given some sort of sustainable livelihood to ensure that they're able to, cope with the injuries they've taken. So he met the families of those who have died, plus some of them who have survived through the incident. And some of them have also been able to put before the Interior Minister what they want him to do for them. They want nothing but justice to be served. I spoke with one of them. I captured the response from one of them. You may want to listen to what the families are saying.
Actually, before hearing that they are most likely to come to Ghana, especially Paga or Bolga, we saw some videos circulating, seeing people running helter-skelter in Burkina, over thousands of people running with children and women. Then later on, we saw other videos. Sincere apologies for that wrong insert there. Anas, you were referring to your conversation with some people. Obviously, that's not what we played.
Exactly, that was not what has been played. What they are saying is that they've heard in reports across board that those who have died were alleged to have been armed robbers. That is why they were shot. So the families were very disturbed with those reports they gathered from around. But so they want the minister and government to state clearly that the members of their families who died have nothing to do with robbery. They have been victims of the December polls or the December general elections, and so that should be made clearly instead of those reports that circulating that those who lost their lives are armed robbers. In response to that, the minister said these were just hearsays. Nothing of that sort popped up during the investigations or in any of the reports that is before him at the Interior Ministry. So he's assuring them that they should do away with those reports because it is nowhere near what they have before them at the ministry in terms of their investigation. So that was taken care of, and the families were quite satisfied with the minister's response and called on him to do more to ensure that justice is served within the shortest possible time.
Anas, thank you very much. Anas Sabit is our correspondent in the Bono East region, bringing us up to speed. You heard the Interior Minister will be keeping our eye on these promises and whether or not the family members who will be hearing from shortly in our subsequent bulletins are satisfied with the responses so far. Ghanaians at the border town of Paga in the Upper East region wants the government to intensify security at that area, following a police wireless message warning of possible attacks by Burkinabe bandits. The wireless message circulated 2 days ago showed that the bandits are suspected to be in possession of military-grade weapons and may have already infiltrated some yet-to-be-identified areas and planning an attack. Albert Sori has been speaking to some of the people. He's joining me via Zoom. Albert, what do they say?
Right, Gifty. So I was saying that one of the things that came up in the course of interaction with the people at Paga was that recently there was a robbery incident in which a mobile money vendor was attacked and a customer who was there at the time was shot. Now, they haven't seen any arrest as far as this attack was concerned. Now, we are talking about bandits, Burkinabe bandits who could be in possession of military-grade weapons. And so if armed robbers could not be apprehended, then it would be to suggest that these bandits, if they are already within the town, chances are the security are not able to deal with it. These are the concerns that they have. They also talked about the fact that generally, since we started hearing about terrorist attacks in Burkina Faso, the situation in Paga normally has been one of fear when people hear that the attacks are going on. In fact, one of the people we interviewed today said that they've seen videos of how some of these attacks in Burkina Faso were carried out, and so they were already scared. It means that this news, makes them feel that they may not be safe, and that is why they expect the government to intensify security in the area.
Well, let's hear some of the residents who have been speaking to you, and then we'll continue the conversation.
Actually, before hearing that they are most likely to come to Ghana, especially Paga or Bolga, we saw some videos circulating, seeing people running helter-skelter in Burkina, over thousands of people running with children and women. Then later on, we saw other videos, people slaughtering other human beings. After that, we heard the information that they'll be coming to Ghana. But one of the fears is that there was a time armed robbers came to border. It's a security zone, but they did what they wanted to do and escaped freely. Nobody had them. Then about a week ago, armed robbers came to attack a mobile money vendor and killed somebody, shot the fellow in the head. Nobody was able to trace them. So mostly we count on the security, but in times of these difficulties, they are not always available to trace these perpetrators.
Hearing the news and the wireless message from the police, it was so worrying. What I want to appeal from the government is we need soldier barracks as a border town, and they should equip all of them. The patrol teams, they should be up and doing. If not, our lives are in danger. And it is not easy for you to just lose a life from someone who will just kill you.
When I heard of it, I was very worried. In fact, this is because I heard of what happened in Burkina Faso last week, where about 160 people were killed in the northern part of that country. So I was very, very worried when I heard the news. I personally think that the government has not been proactive. We've heard of terrorist attacks in our neighboring countries, and that should have made us put measures in place, but we failed to do that. So, having received this warning from the Ghana Police Service, I think that the first thing government should do is to equip our police service. I have seen most of our police officers patrolling this town. You see them with that bulletproof jackets. They don't have helmets to protect themselves, and that's very bad. These are people's fathers, people's husbands, and sending them on such a mission without the right equipment will be like sending them on a suicide mission. So I think that that's the first thing that should be done. The police force should be equipped very well.
Just last week, there was an armed robbery attack in Paga town here, and unfortunately, a customer lost his life. I don't know whether they are also part of the bandits or they are just ordinary armed robbers, but that alone has caused some kind of fear and panic among the citizenry. And now we have this police wireless message too that these bandits are around. So we don't even know whether this armed robbery is linked to it or not. But even if it is not, so far as they said that these bandits are in the country now, I think the police should have been able to identify where they are. You can't just say that bandits are in the, within our territory and you don't know where they are. So how can we be safe? They could even be in Paga here right now, and anything can happen at any time. So I think the police should quickly, or the security service should quickly identify where they are. With the intelligence they have gathered, they should go deep into the intelligence and locate where they are and fish them out quickly, because with the message they have given, they are causing more fear and panic among the citizenry than it was. We are not even feeling safe. But with this now, I don't think we are safe at all. We are just afraid now to even go on with our life.
The day before yesterday, we were all sad. In fact, we are not safe too, especially from Paga here. This is a border town. So when they are to come in, they are supposed to pass through the border town before they will go to Bolga, Tamale. So what we need the government to do for us is to bring more security, especially the soldiers. They can do the work for us. They should bring more security people so that we will be able to survive and to live for Ghana.
Recently, you heard they came and attacked one of our brother. So we don't know whether it is some of them or not. So nobody can identify any stranger, because especially we have strangers in our town. They are friends. Some of them are friends from houses staying. So you can't know whether he's some of them or not. So we need the help of the security. That doesn't mean that the security are not doing their work. They are doing their work, but we need more. So the government should come into our shoes to help us, because we are near to the border. We are the first people to attack before going to the center. So we need the government help. They should give us more security.
Those are some residents of the border community, Paga, speaking to Albert. Sorry, Albert is still here. Albert, so what is the feeling like in town when you went there today?
What you notice is that people are going about their normal everyday activity. Before I got into the town, I was under the impression that I will see something similar to, a sort of panic or people trying to stay away from the streets. But I've been to Paga so many times to do stories, and today was not any different. People were just going about their normal everyday activity. There was no, increase in the number of security personnel at the border. From what I saw, it was just the normal security that I've seen in times past that I have been to the place. So you get the sense that everybody, is taking this normal, and they are going about their normal everyday activity. You only get to know how they feel when you talk to them, like we did with these youth who are gathered on the town. So that is how it is at the moment.
Albert, thank you very much. Albert, is our Upper East Regional Correspondent, speaking to residents of the border town in Paga, which, of course, is very close to Burkina Faso, where that threat, we're told, should be expected from. Well, talking about security, this week the capital here in Accra has witnessed a heart-wrenching robbery in which a police officer and a bystander were killed. Well, police say they are on a search for the perpetrators, but then there are concerns over the heightened insecurity that people say they feel in town. We'll be hearing from some of you who have been talking to us shortly, but just some information coming in from the Accra police is that an unlicensed driver has been arrested and charged with the murder of a 27-year-old teacher of the youngsters school in Adenta. According to the police, Emeka Adams, who is 42, after he knocked down Alice Adamte, abandoned her at an unknown location to die. Emeka, according to police investigation, has been revealing that on June 7 this year, he knocked down the teacher with the Hyundai Sonata saloon vehicle with registration number 2621 at the Adenta Dodoa traffic intersection at 7 p.m. The driver picked up Adamte under the pretext of sending her to the hospital, but ended up abandoning her in a bush at Abokobi, resulting in the death of the victim. That's according to police. On Wednesday, the suspect, who was the driver at the time of the incident, was arrested and has been processed for court. He's been charged with murder. Well, in a separate development, still on security, the Accra police also has arrested suspects who allegedly robbed a motorbike armed with a machete. According to the police, 2 other accomplices, now at large, who were armed with cutlasses, attacked and robbed the complainant of his royal motorbike with registration number M21GW490 at Tunga Children's Park at Dansoman. And these are the pictures that the police has been circulating of the people that they have arrested. There's another one we'll show you, or you can get that picture as well. We'll put them on myjoyonline.com. But my colleague Benjamin Akapu has been out and about talking to people in the city to find out what they make of what has been happening recently. Listen.
To me as an individual, when I look at what is going on now, I'm not happy. Not because something has happened to me, but it has happened to others. So when it happened to others, means it has happened to me. Yeah, so what they are doing today, I'm not happy.
So you're not...
In looking of what has happened, the armed robbers and other things, to me, it's not good. Even the police people, I think they are doing easily job. At times when you see them outside, even see them holding a torch, stopping cars, it's an easily job that they are doing. But when it comes to armed robbery, they are not doing it. So, and I hear government alleging some strategy to the security, that this is the strategy they have to perform. But in looking of what is going on, I don't see, not that they didn't anything, but I don't see, because there are still people are still robbing.
Me first of all, no metimi aka say yebema abusua a o ma hwere wo mode hye no yakọ e wo saa asemu we hu, because ade bia e be ba no ewuo de me fin say enye adepa a wo say ye nyina ye didi agro, but ya futuo no so bekwa ma ye security men no a ye no wo mo ye wo Ghana ha no, because I say ade we koso a anytime am robbers ebe approaches police. I say bank, and now this bullying van. This is not the first time. Anytime Ombe approach Ombia, they keep police and they go free. I don't understand, because who as a policeman, they give you arms to protect. And a place no so neka na wakotina mun. Wouldn't him say this is what is happening? Say you be binti ayam fa won kwatira ka nim. And you have to be serious and do your thing. Say you are a policeman and you are protecting what you have.
I never seen there no I know I cost too much, but I didn't make a car imagine can say police for now say I would scare anymore, and it's a at least also banks for who say I'm not going to and the scarcity will be any brisker. Into this kind of car come to me no also move car be say ba could be a change, ba could be any move na bank no we fini na police any time one alert ba we fini this kind of car bo say bo not oteke no bo was abune to no esi ni chen ba na ka to liwo nso na ka sa we ni nso na ka ko wi wa community ko no betu attack on ndi ni na say yes security na ho mo security na we no ko bank na e loose and ni ka am se ka on.
Okay, now IGP nso say Ghana ha no ana ewiase bebia ni ho a and Tawantawa and I say crime and I say never be sano NC just a heaven and also no Ojen Hussein.
Oh, and no clear, baby, no, I do see, baby, see, but yeah, have one. And I went down also into time, Yana, used to some active.
So far, those we've been interacting with will interact with one or two more, but so far, the general sentiment is that the police service ought to be doing more. The last speaker was saying that he agrees with the IGP that, in fact, no country is like heaven where there is no crime, and that more ought to be done, that all of us ought to be, ensuring that the police is doing more to protect us right in our communities. The first speaker was also saying, he was referring to the national security strategy that was launched recently. Maybe not directly related, but he was saying that that strategy must also fit into protecting the generality of the citizenry. Let's move on now and interact with one or two more people. Into Adrian Cherno, NSA.
The rate at which chronobono kosrono so na me no is as if say you for no are always on top of the security personnel and for the robbers and as a no, and I think it's not the best, because in recent times na doso, and not too long ago even at Anisakal just opposite police headquarters robbery daylight robbery so na me no if in front of police headquarters Now say Chronobobe Koso, and then the robbers will go scot free. I think the security services have to be up and doing.
Then you to be any aboy home buying.
Bamboni the say as citizens, you know, and you bet me aboy home buying. But the issue is that when we say Accra for when they plan ahead of their operations, and before baby operation, no, now omo survey BBA and opportunity, they are always ahead of us. And
so in a nutshell, he has been sharing quite a number of thoughts, and for him, one of the most important ones is that the security apparatus of our country, the Ghana Police Service, should live up to expectation. He was talking about one of those recent robberies around the CID headquarters, and how right in front of the headquarters of the Ghana Police Service, such a robbery could happen. He's also spoken about the fact that, well, individually, we all ought to protect ourselves, because it appears, looking at the police to citizen ratio, they cannot, take charge for everybody. And
Benjamin Akapo there, sampling views on how people feel generally here, especially in the capital. You're watching The Pulse with me, Gifty and Dopia. We'll have a lot of stories coming up after this break. We'll be talking to Education Watch, Africa Education Watch, about the recently, last year's West African Examination Council's exams, where there's a push for the arrest and prosecution of persons responsible for leakage of the questions last year. We'll be talking to them to find out what they found in their investigations shortly. Take a look.
WAEC is the referee, they are the player, they are the coach. They investigate themselves, they clear themselves, and they actually certify themselves.
I'm going to take a very quick break. When I return, I'll tell you more, plus how COVID-19 has paralyzed somebody for so long. We'll understand the situation. Why is this even possible? For now, they need help to survive. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Yeah, welcome back to the show, and many thanks for staying with us. Now, education think tank Africa Education Watch is pushing for the prosecution of persons found to be complicit in various examination malpractices during the 2020 West African Secondary School Certificate Exam WASSCE. The think tank, in its report on the 2020 WASSCE, reviewed how question papers were leaked from various distribution points to online platforms, with hundreds of people awaiting supply of the leaked questions. They attribute the leakage to poor supervision and activities of the unscrupulous officials, or some unscrupulous officials, I should say, working with police protection. Well, what are the details? Kofi Asare is joining me in the studio. He's Executive Director. We'll start with the findings on the leakage and the distribution chain of the papers. Kofi, it's good to have you. Good afternoon. Tell us exactly how this leakage chain works.
Well, basically, let me indicate that this research fits into a bigger government agenda to reform WAEC. Excellency, the President indicated in the SONA, the most recent SONA, that his government was going to reform WAEC and make it more credible. And the Minister of Education has consequently, reiterated the same fact. And so, as a CSO in the education space, this research is supposed to guide the Ministry of Education or support it, to prefer lasting solutions to the issues of examination malpractices without necessarily focusing on what happens in the classroom, but also blocking the gaps in the question distribution chain, because that is the source of the leakage. Now, what happened last year is not too different from what happens every year in the past 10, 15 years or so, except that for last year, in the first time in WAEC's 50-plus history in Ghana, the contact details of examiners who were used to mark the papers leaked.
All the examiners, or just a few of them, or one?
When the leakage occurred, 1,520 names, their telephone numbers, the schools that they are working in, the papers that they teach or they mark in, everything was leaked.
Wow.
And we engaged WAEC. WAEC held a press conference and assured the public that that was only a provisional list and that they had about 20,000 markers, suggesting that they were not going to use the 1,520. But eventually, WAEC went ahead and used the same number of the same examiners whose contacts were leaked. And we thought that that was something that couldn't pass without critical analysis and review, in the sense that WAEC on its website aims to undertake examination consistent with the standards of British examining bodies. And if you go to UK, standards set by the Office of Qualification and Assessment, Ofqual, which is the regulator of assessment in the UK, are clear. It includes, among others, ensuring the non-disclosure of examiners or markers.
I mean, clearly, to expose examiners' contacts is clearly, I mean, I've never heard of this.
It is a subject of non-disclosure.
Exactly. So have you given this information over to the police?
We immediately the leakage occurred. WAEC came and admitted. The next day, we blew the whistle today, and on the 19th of August, WAEC came in a statement and admitted that yes, the leakage was from their headquarters, and that they were constituting a team to investigate the matter. We are in the 10th month since the leakage occurred, since WAEC admitted the leakage, the leaked material to be genuine and from their offices. We are yet to know of what have happened. Apart from the leakage in the examination, the key thing was the magnitude and dimension of the leakage in questions. It was also unprecedented. Why? With the exception of core science and social studies, all the questions were leaked on social media. There was a social media platform called Telegram, called HotLeaks. On this HotLeaks platform, questions were leaked at dawn. Around 2 o'clock, questions were ready. And then the platform had about close to 100,000 members then at the beginning. By the end of the exam, the number has increased about 150,000.
Wow.
So what happened was that they will come and advertise that the questions are coming in. When the questions are ready, they will say the questions are ready. Then members who have paid will be moved onto a WhatsApp platform from the Telegram platform.
So you pay and then you get access to the leaked questions.
Exactly. So 1 hour to the examination, then they will release the questions to the free show. By that time, students are virtually on their way to the examination hall.
So there's virtually no...
encouraging people to pay and be part of the paid website.
Right.
And it was happening all the time.
I see.
It was happening all the time.
So in your investigation, you put together some recommendations. I mean, this is a terrible problem that we must look at. Let's walk us through the recommendations.
Before I walk you through the recommendations, let me also emphasize that this one too is not new, because in previous years, WAEC had reported this particular social media platform and other social media platforms where questions were being traded to the Ghana Police Service, to the Cybercrime Unit, except that they've still not been able to...
So the problem is that we knew about this problem.
Exactly.
It's been reported, but nothing has been done subsequently.
Exactly. So the impact keeps increasing because of the power of social media, to grow.
Okay.
Now, in terms of recommendations, we have come to the conclusion that WAEC ever since have been focusing on fixing examination malpractices from within the examination hall by preventing students from entering foreign materials or preventing them from copying whilst in the room. That is a symptomatic way of solving the problem, because the cause is actually how questions get leaked. Questions leak from WAEC's depot, and I'll give it to WAEC. WAEC do not leak questions. Questions leak when they leave the WAEC depots and then in transit to the schools. And those who are normally within that chain, the Ghana Police Service and teachers. So if you look at the trajectory, all the time, those who are arrested for leaking questions are the police and teachers. However, in many instances, beyond interdiction, no prosecution is done. No one goes to jail for engaging in
so take me through one after the other, the recommendations.
So the first recommendation...
I want them to stand out very clearly.
The first recommendation is that...
There is a digitization.
WAEC has to digitize its question transmission system. To reduce the human element, we are simply saying that WAEC should invest in security printers in every school. Okay, we have Wi-Fi in almost every senior high school now, courtesy government Wi-Fi project, which is commendable. In that case, it is possible for WAEC to send an end-to-end encrypted email of the questions 30 minutes before the exam. and then it will be printed in all the printers.
For 30 minutes before exams be feasible enough for school authorities to now print papers for all the candidates?
It should happen within 10 minutes. You are just printing a paper.
That's on the assumption that a school at Brahabe Bome has enough or has the capacity to print the document within 30 minutes.
Printers will be available in all 700, less than 700 schools. Less than 700 senior high schools. Printers will be available. Okay, these are senior high schools, with internet and all that. And so a printer shouldn't be an issue if we really want to cut out the human element in the value chain. So if this is done, questions will be printed in a full glare of candidates, and people will not have the time to take shots of questions when they leave the strong room, circulate them, and then solve them, and then come and write examination.
You're also advocating the enforcement of the ban of mobile phones because of these leakages. Doesn't it fly in the face of promoting ICT and the use of internet to assist learning in schools?
The mobile phone has already been banned. We are not saying it should be banned. It's already a banned item in schools. The mobile phones were the rallying point for smuggling in questions and answers in all the schools. They were organized with WhatsApp platforms, okay, where students were fed with these questions from wherever they bought the questions from. And so if we want to break the chain of transmitting APO to the students, the best way is to deny them of the vessel through which the questions are transmitted and the answers are transmitted, which is the mobile phone. I'm not saying that that's the only solution. From the supply side, of course, you try and then disrupt the supply chain. At the same time, you try as much as possible to block the leakage so that there's even no leakage. So we're looking at both the demand side and the supply side. But most importantly, WAEC, we need to have a discussion about this. WAEC is a contractor engaged by the Ministry of Education. That's all about WAEC. WAEC is not a government agency. But you see, WAEC's work is actually virtually assessing the GES's efficiency, because GES teaches students and WAEC assesses them. So GES has an interest in WAEC examination, because if the student pass, GES take the credit. But you find the GES Director General sitting on the WAEC Council. This role is potentially conflicting.
Okay. I want you to wrap up with that one, but so because we're going through
it is actually one of the recommendations.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, to decouple the GES from WAEC Council, because it is difficult for the GES to blame WAEC for inefficiencies when they themselves are sitting on the council.
On the council, okay. Okay. You also talk about the assessment methods that you say should be reviewed. But before I make you come to that one, there's some breaking news coming in. Let's just cross over quickly, take this breaking news, and we will continue. Well, the breaking news is that Kenneth Kaunda, who is Zambia's first president and a key figure in its independence struggle, has died. He was aged 97. His family has confirmed his death. Kaunda was admitted to a hospital in the capital, Lusaka, on Monday, suffering from pneumonia. His aide said he did not have COVID-19. In the 1950s, Kaunda was a key figure in what was then Northern Rhodesia's independence movement from Britain. His soul rest in peace. So that's the breaking news coming in this afternoon. Former president of Zambia has died. He was 97. All right, now, so let's move on. Profi, sorry for that interruption, but this is news just coming in. If you want to make a comment on the back of that.
Africa indeed has lost one of its gallant fathers. He was a great man, and his soul rest in peace. We commiserate to the government and people of Zambia over this.
Okay. So the recommendation, digitization of question papers, the ban of mobile phones, especially because it's become, as you call it, the rallying point for transmitting of APO, and then the decoupling of the GES from WAEC. And then you also I was just asking you about assessment methods. You're saying that the assessment methods should be reviewed. I have one more that I'll bring in as we wrap up, but talk to me about assessment methods.
You know, test-based assessment is only one form of assessment. There are various other practical, demonstrative way of assessing someone's learning outcomes, apart from writing tests.
Okay.
And so if you compare to other methods, For the other method, even if you have the questions, it won't do anything because you have to demonstrate that you know 1 + 1 is equal to 2.
And you need to think.
Not just write it. Okay, so WAEC's method is more about recall, little applied. And so we are saying that 2 things. Let us break WAEC's monopoly and bring in other international assessment bodies that have reputations like WAEC to give WAEC some competition. What is the competition? The nature of competition is such that new methods of assessment, okay, beyond testing would have been infused into the system to bring some dynamism, and then also enhance the quality of assessment so that WAEC itself...
Is the Ghanaian student in the senior high school ready for this proposal?
Well, we've been doing practicals in physics and chemistry and biology, right? Yes, they are all part of the kind of assessment I'm talking about. And so we are used to that already, except that we are saying that we are doing too much test-based assessment. Apart from that, we are also saying that we need to give more priority to strengthening school-based assessments. If we have a more strengthened school-based assessment, we can't be watering down on the impact of external assessment when there happen to be leakages or inefficiencies.
Okay.
Apart from that, it is very important to appreciate that WAEC presently operates as a referee and a coach, and then they are the 11 players on the field. WAEC has no regulator. It defeats every principle in governance, in public sector governance. You understand? And so WAEC needs a regulator that will set standards for WAEC, that will enforce the standard. That when WAEC breaches the standards, can sanction WAEC. Not only WAEC, but other assessment bodies operating in the country. There are about 4 or so operating in the country. Some doing international baccalaureate, some doing ICGSE and all that. So that there can be an agency that, for instance, if I'm a student and I feel aggrieved about WAEC's conduct, I can appeal to that agency to investigate WAEC, whether they have administratively abused my rights or not. As it stands now, if my rights, if I feel injured as a candidate, I go and complain to WAEC, the very party that is in the middle of my injury. And so we need to have a regulator for the assessment sector to regulate all other agencies undertaking assessments in Ghana.
Who should typically be in this regulator setup that you talk about?
In all the discussion, the Ministry of Education is the owner of the policy. They have the onus to initiate reforms. They have the onus to initiate policy reforms. And also they have the onus to engage WAEC because, as I mentioned earlier on, WAEC is only a contractor engaged by government to provide a service. If the contractor's work falls short of the standards expected by government, being the client has the right to review the terms of reference for the contractor. It has the right to review the terms of reference and ensure that it becomes consistent with the standards that the client expects of the contractor. Okay. And so government is key. Every time we talk about WAEC, we are talking about government. WAEC cannot reform itself. It is only the government of Ghana that can set higher benchmarks, institute more efficient and accountable regulatory framework, and ensure that WAEC operates in line with internationally accepted best practices in an assessment sector.
Well, right now you have an investigative, you have a report from your investigations. Exactly. We'll see what next steps that investigation will lead us to.
Well, the Ministry of Education is aware. We've been engaging WAEC on this report.
They've reached out to you?
Oh, yeah, we've been, prior to the report, the launch of the report, we had discussions with the minister. Okay. Indicated that we are supporting the ministry and government, government's effort to reform the assessment sector through this report. And we've started engaging WAEC. Last week, we had discussions with WAEC on the draft report, even before we launched it. So we are confident that this report will assist His Excellency the President pursue his agenda of reforming and strengthening WAEC to make it a more credible institution. Okay. And we are convinced that with the existence of this political will, the recommendations we've made in the report will see the light of day and will end the days of constant leakage in questions, and also will not permit a repeat of the leakage in the question paper. Okay. However, let me conclude by saying that I
hope that WAEC. What was WAEC's response when you met them? They're happy to open up to this.
WAEC has actually started doing some reforms, as I mentioned.
So they're happy to partner with you on this.
They are not partnering us on this, but then they are happy that we are advocating that they be supported to improve, because they cannot do all these things. WAEC cannot. One of WAEC's major problem is the prosecution of persons found to have engaged in examination malpractices. WAEC does not have prosecutorial power. So if a policeman, in 2014, a policeman was caught in Konongo for selling questions, okay, between the depot and then the
WAEC can only report.
WAEC reported. A year after, WAEC came out and said, look, the policeman was only interdicted. He wasn't prosecuted. What can WAEC do? WAEC cannot go to court because they don't have prosecutorial powers. And so we have called on the Ministry of Education, the Attorney General, and WAEC to work closely and begin prosecuting persons who were cited for similar offenses in the past WASI examination. If we don't prosecute, there is no way we can actually deter others from thinking of doing the same thing in this year again. Yes. Not only for our poor practitioners, but also for the students. If students know that if I go and buy questions, I put myself in danger of being prosecuted, in addition to the seller, both the buyer and the seller will beware.
They're more likely not to do so.
Exactly.
Kofi, thank you so much for this work and for coming through to explain this to us and our viewers. Kofi Asare is Executive Director for the think tank Africa Education Watch. Essentially, they're calling for prosecution and arrest and prosecution of persons found to be involved in examination malpractices. Thank you very much once again. Well, speaking of education, the Sector Minister, Dr. Yawase Duchum, says his outfit has adopted policies and programs aimed at discouraging rote learning types of education that has come to be associated with Ghana's education. He says what has come to be known in Ghana as the chew, pour, pass and forget way of learning account for the deficit in creativity and progress of students in the country. He's been speaking at the launch of the Institute for Educational Planning and Administration at a UNESCO Category 2 Center of Excellence at the University of Cape Coast.
The Education Minister, Dr. Yawase Duchum, was confident rote learning would be a thing of the past in the country, looking at the programs and policies being rolled out by the Ministry of Education. He says the country risks sacrificing the creativity of students should such a practice continue to be with us.
We want to see a situation where we are creating knowledge every day and we are not dispensing knowledge to the children for them to give it back to us. In Ghana, we call that chew, pour, pass and forget. But I call that chew, pour, fail and be forgotten. Because invariably those who chew and pour don't pass. We cannot create an education system based on record. Record is the lowest level of learning. So if you are teaching pollution and you are asking students to talk about causes of pollution, effects of pollution, that is fine. But the highest level of learning in that lesson will be when you ask students to create a city without pollution. They come together, brainstorm ideas, and talk about solar energy and electric cars and others that will not pollute the environment. That is when you are really talking about bringing about transformation in your society, because those children will leave that classroom and they'll forever remember that lesson, and they'll always look for ways of bringing about solution to problems that has confronted us for years. We have to come to a point when we are looking at age-old problems with a new set of eyes.
He expressed worry about how every educational policy that is fashioned out in the country is politicized.
Our education strategic plan is solid, great, and invariably I hear people saying, you are politicizing education, and yes, some of us as politicians are our worst enemies, because when MPP does something great, NDC will make sure it's torn apart and vice versa in many times. Consequently, we diffuse the confidence of the Ghanaian in our system. You're doing everything and everyone is second guessing as to whether it's a political gimmick or it's truly something that can change the fortunes of this country. When I see E-blocks being politicized, I say no. E-block at Kwabenya, great location. Agrek in Zima in Kumasi, great location. The schools are full. Why should I say that it's a bad thing?
Director General of the Institute for Educational Planning and Administration, Dr. Mike Boachia, indicated the commitment of the now UNESCO Category 2 Center of Excellence is shaping up education in the country and the West African sub-region through effective leadership.
Our team believes in harvesting indigenous cultural knowledge to enhance research, teaching, and outreach. We encourage decolonizing educational practices and research in Ghanaian higher education especially. And we support decentering whiteness and recentering blackness in our practices. Our niche, therefore, is the introduction of practitioner seminars where accomplished practitioners, scholar practitioners.
The 40th session of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization General Conference approved IEPA's application for the Category 2 status in November 2020. Reporting for JoyNews, Richard Kwejonyako, Cape Coast.
Let's all contribute to make our education sector better. Well, at the time that the country's COVID-19 cases peaked in Ghana, JoyNews brought you a number of stories about persons who had succumbed to the virus or put up a spirited fight against all odds. Most of these stories were about adults. Today, we tell you the story of a 12-year-old Georgina Lamptey. She has been left with severe complications and is still on admission at the Adan Government Hospital after being infected more than a year ago. Benis Abubeidu Lancer has more.
The COVID-19 virus sneaked into Georgina's system and almost robbed her of everything, her speech and the use of her legs. Her family is not sure where she may have picked it from. She's intelligent and strong-willed, her mother says. Perhaps it's that inner strength that has kept her alive. More than a year after contracting the virus, she's still on admission at the Adan Government Hospital. Georgina is frail and her eyes look like she's got a lot to say, especially about how she spent about 4 months on a ventilator at the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit, PQ, of the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital. Her mother tells us about the complaint that has turned out to be the family's worst nightmare.
My daughter complained of pain in her leg when she returned from school. From there, she couldn't walk again. So I brought her here to the Adan Hospital and we were transferred to Korle Bu. We found out there that she had been infected with the virus.
I meet Dr. Owusu Setre, head of the PQ at Korle Bu. He takes me to the ward where Georgina stayed.
One of the feared complications is that sometimes the paralysis can affect the muscles that help you to breathe. And in her case, it did. So initially we had to intubate her, put her on the machine. And when the test result of COVID came in, we had to send her to UGMC. So it was at UGMC, recovered. We were able to pull the tube out. She was able to breathe. And then they referred the child back to us. And then with physiotherapy and the child was able to go home. Then the child worsened and then came back. So when the child came back and we put her back on the machine, every time we attempted to remove the machine, the child arrested on us. I mean, by arrest, I mean, if we don't put the child back on the machine, the child was going to die. And this went on for a period. The child spent about 120 days on the ventilator. Eventually, we had to make a hole here and then put a tube so that the child could breathe through. Something unexpected, nobody knew. But there's a long-term complication of COVID. By the time the child was going home, she was all, the limbs were all stiff. We needed a lot of physio. And even the tube, we need a lot of care. So we had to send her back to the hospital that referred her to us for them to teach the parents how to take care of the tube. What we think actually is that the child got what we call a recurrence, a reinfection of it. And that is what led to her coming back to us. So for this particular child, we think everything that we saw, even though it has been documented in medical literature as Guillain-Barré syndrome, we think the trigger here is the coronavirus infection that she acquired.
Keeping her on life support for that long was an act of sheer generosity. Georgina's 82,000 cedi bill is still outstanding. She had become family and the nurses and doctors just couldn't pull the plugs on her. Georgina's health has been greatly impacted. Her family is staying strong for her, But the incident has also taken a huge emotional and financial toll on them.
Things are difficult for the family. What to eat is even a problem. Georgina's brother has stopped going to school. There's no money. I'm a widow and an orphan. I have no siblings. I am all they have. And I'm unable to do my usual petty trading because I have to be here for her. Doctors say she may recover fully, and though slowly, and be able to return to school. She was in class 5 when the sickness struck. My daughter is strong-willed and hardworking. She and her brother always received compliments from their teachers. They have always asked me to pray for them so they would finish school and take care of me.
Detecting COVID-19 can be very tricky, even to the trained eye. The global medical community is still working hard to understand the virus, especially how it presents among children.
The first child that we diagnosed in this unit of COVID-19 was on this one with an intubation and a ventilator on. Unfortunately, we lost that child. This child was about 8-9 years, and it happened around the time that we were on lockdown. And they were observing all the protocols according to parents. This child presented with what we call rabies-like syndrome, like when a dog with rabies bites somebody, the way they behave, aggressive, spitting at each other, trying to attack us and everything. And parents were so sure that this child had not gone out to be bitten by a dog. They didn't have a dog in their house, and yet that child was exhibiting those symptoms. Something very baffling. So we decided, okay, there's a new kid on the block, why don't we investigate for coronavirus infection? And voila, when the results came, it was COVID. Those that come in with severe conditions, some of them come in fact, most of them come with what we call the neurological deficit or manifestation, brain things. So we have a child that came in, two siblings actually, they came in coma. So we thought, this is in our environment, cerebral malaria is the commonest. We started the treatment, we did everything, and still, child was recovering, but it was very slow. So we screened the COVID for the two of them. One tested positive, the other tested negative. There are others that also come with fever, itchy throat, sore throat, and then we test them and they come positive.
While Georgina's family waits for a miracle, the WHO has warned of a possible third wave in Ghana. Health officials are racing against time to stay on schedule with vaccinations. The scary multiple waves of this pandemic continue to traverse borders. Everyone is at risk.
Babies lost, children left with physical disabilities for life, all because they contracted the deadly coronavirus. We can't say this enough. Please, try your best, stay safe, observe the protocols, and that's how you can stay alive in this season. Benis Abubedu-Lansa
for JoyNews.
Well, producer of the feature, Benis, joins me via Zoom. Benis, let's begin with how you came across Georgina's story.
Right, so this was around the time when we were reaching out to a lot of resource persons, trying to understand the virus, trying to get people adhering to the protocols. And one of them actually hinted that he had heard of a young girl who had been left paralyzed after contracting the virus. And so I decided to follow up, and I confirmed the story and reached out to her mother. And we started working on the story. But the thing is, in my research, I discovered that apparently Georgina is not the only person who has suffered such complications from contracting COVID. I came across a story from The Guardian in the UK, where a young boy and his sister have contracted the virus. Unfortunately, the boy has been left paralyzed, and he's using a wheelchair now.
Benny, so tell us a bit more about the impacts that this has had on the family. She's a single mother, I believe, and she's had a child who has an 82,000 debt already at Kolebu Teaching Hospital, and she is still not recovered.
Gifty, indeed. Prior to contracting this was a very modest family. I mean, her mother tells me that she used to hawk soap and other, petty stuff that she could lay her hands on in the community. As you heard her say, she's a widow, she's an orphan. She literally is, the only source of remuneration for the family, or the only breadwinner, let me put it that way, of the family. And so when this happened, she's literally been affected also, because she has to stay with Georgina. They live in a one-bedroom house. And that is also a problem because, as you heard the doctor say, Georgina needs a lot of care because she's still in a bit of a critical condition, especially with the tracheostomy tube and environment. It's very difficult to cater for her one bedroom with her mother and siblings, and she doesn't even have a wheelchair to move around anyway. So this has really hit them hard. They're literally depending on the benevolence of doctors and nurses and other people who know of Georgina's predicament.
And speaking of which, Bernice, as we wrap up, the mother, the doctors are talking about a slow recovery, a slow speed of recovery. How slow is slowly when they say?
So, Gifty, the doctors say that it will be difficult to get Georgina back to her former state, considering the extent of paralysis. But what they say is that they can do some rehabilitation. If you paid critical attention to the video, you realize that her limbs are quite stiff. So what they will do now is to do some rehabilitation, some physiotherapy, so at least she can gain a little movement which can aid her in using a wheelchair.
And that's the biggest concern for the doctors. Tell me about the biggest concern for the doctors when it comes to COVID in children, generally.
Yeah, so this virus is still evolving, Gifty, and you know that there are mutations almost every 2 or 3 months. We hear of a different variant. So just like it is in adults, the doctors are still trying to understand how it presents in children, the kind of complications it leaves them. And though the statistics show that children are not so infected as adults, or are not really affected by this pandemic as adults in terms of infection rate and even the complications they are left with, they are concerned that there may be a means of transferring the virus to older people who may struggle in dealing with the virus eventually.
So what we know is that this young lady has been cured of COVID-19, but the paralysis remains. That's it.
Yes, Gifty. So she doesn't have COVID anymore, but as we all see, it's left her in a worse state than she was.
Well, I believe we're accepting donations for her and for her upkeep. Yeah. Bernice Abubedu Lansa there. Bernice, thank you very much for this story. And hopefully we'll be able to get some help for this girl and her widowed mother, as well as, the doctors who are helping her. A very big thanks to you. And we hope that she recovers faster than anticipated. Well, the Ghana Journalists Association has presented a VW saloon vehicle to host of News File Samson Ladi Anyenene for winning the Best Journalist of the Year 2019. Staff and management of multimedia, together with the Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah, handed over the vehicle to Samson at a short ceremony. Mr. Ladi, speaking shortly after the event, vowed to pursue credible, independent and fearless journalism to positively impact lives.
Very frank with you, I had no expectations before the awards. I actually got to know about my selection, I think a night before the award ceremony itself, and I didn't know about it until then. And I couldn't confirm until the awards night. In the same way, After the 2019 awards ceremony, I have had no expectations because I have told the GJA president over and again that the recognition for me was sufficient. I had the privilege of getting to know the faculty that made the determination, and I have every reason to believe that they did a fair job. So the recognition alone for me has been sufficient. And he has continued to tell me that there is a price I should expect. Even in that, I was telling my producer, Sami Odame, when the letter went out yesterday, because I had been invited to be here, but I wasn't told what I was coming to receive. So I told Sami Odame that my expectation was that there was going to be a presentation of a laptop or something like that. I had no expectation of a vehicle. So it's yet another surprise, and I am very thankful to the awards committee, to the GJA, and ultimately to the minister, to the president for the decision to donate this car for this purpose. Thank you all. And I want to commit that I'll continue to make myself available to champion credible and fearless journalism.
The tear-over that you see right there. Well, the national president of the association, Afil Moni, speaking at the event, observed that the selection of Samson Ladi Ayireni as the best journalist of the year did not come with the unusual controversy associated with the ultimate winner of these awards.
True that many Ghanaians are incurably MPP. Some are intractably NDC. In between the two sides are relatively few journalists with independent, streak and objective bent. And these are the qualities Samson represents. Samson in the Bible simply means superhuman strength. So we need more Samsons in the media space, not necessarily with physical strength, but the strength of objectivity and independence, so that they can do their work as fearless and as professional as possible. To Samson, the member of the awards committee said they had no problems in selecting me as the best. In fact, before the selection was done, the GJ came out with a list. They also came with their list. This is what we do. The GJ will come out with their list. They also come with their list, and we judge or reach a consensual framework to select who fits the crown as the best in the country. We also know that the selection of the best journalist is most often enveloped in controversy. But in the case of Samson, there was no controversy at all. And this is a colossal testament of the quality of journalist he is.
Afil Moni there is president of the Ghana Journalists Association there. Well, the chief HR manager for the multimedia group, Nana Elegba, also spoke. We can hear him now.
For us, it is a thing of pride that one of our own, from our own stables, won the Journalist of the Year award. So we are very proud of him. Not only of him, but of all the others, the 14 other award winners. And would like to say that it bears testament to the quality of journalists, to the quality of team members that we have, and to the quality of the work that we churn out at the multimedia group.
And finally, for the staff, the journalists, what should the challenge be to them for you as the head of the group?
For me, it is a pointer and a sign that hard work always pays off. You can never get it wrong, and you can never go wrong with hard work. You may be working hard in your corner. You may not have been seen or recognized yet, but don't give up. Keep up the good work, keep on working hard, and eventually to pay off.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Nana Legba is Chief HR here at the Multimedia Group. I want to talk to you about something very important about lands. I mean, about a year or two ago, 2 years ago, we had a very sustained and consistent conversation about land acquisition. Well, last year, Parliament passed a new law to govern land administration here in Ghana, and it is expected to address the perennial problems with land acquisition with its associated violence. This new law proposes very stringent punishment for persons claiming ownership of lands that they do not deserve. The Land Act 2020, Act 1036, was passed by Parliament and given presidential assent on the 23rd of December last year to revise, harmonize and consolidate the law. So what is this about, and what must you know about it? We have a representative from the Lands Commission here. His name is Timothy Anyidoho. He's Principal Land Administration Officer at the Lands Commission. He'll help us understand this new act and how it applies to us. Timothy, it's good to see you. It's been a while.
It's good to see you.
Yeah. So, I mean, we run this, like I said, consistent program where we talked a lot about land. Yeah. But now the laws have changed. Yes. Give us the highlights of the new act.
Okay, so the highlights will be from what you call the long title of the act, when you said to harmonize, to consolidate. Okay. Look at section 281 of this act. It repeals, that means it sort of repeals about 12 laws and one section of it, of one. So let's say 12, we say 13, but it's not all 13. Okay. One of them, Act 127, is just Section 11 that was repealed. Okay. That will show that we've sought to consolidate all those laws into one law. The feature of all those old laws were that they were pre-1992 Constitution. There have been judicial decisions. There have been all kinds of things that have happened in the current time. So the new act was passed, and we are happy. It's a new baby. It's in response to some of the discussions we've had here, right. As you said, sustainably in 2 years ago. Yeah. I think other officers of the commission were here. Yeah. And then it seeks to, so I'll speak about a few of the highlights.
Yes, one of the key is double or triple multiple ownership. Yes, ownership of lands. Yes. How does it address that key problem, and then the others?
Okay, so first of all, the law seems to bring a lot of stringent offenses in the act. We've spoken about land guards here. I remember the first time I was here was land wars, if I remember. So section 12 of the act now seeks to deal with that. It doesn't use the heading as land guards, but it says anybody who procures, uses, or through whom your interest in land is stopped or is disrupted, he can be prosecuted by the courts. If he goes and he's charged for it, he's prosecuted, then his sentence may be between minimum of 5 years, maximum of 15 years.
So 5 to 15 years imprisonment
for procuring somebody, or you yourself partaking in preventing somebody from using his land or extorting money from the person, or doing acts that would endanger the person's interest of land. That's one, and that's not the only one. In fact, the law doesn't only look at those outside. It looks also as public servants like us. And if you look at Section 276 down, it talks about offenses. And the offenses, some are to us public servants. For instance, if you fraudulently aid somebody to register, or you cause somebody's documents to be lost, or you also have penalties and then in prison terms, some of them 7 to 10 years, 7 to 15
We didn't have this previously?
We didn't have this previously. Under the old law, there were still ways by which you could charge people for this. And if you remember the last time we discussed, we were looking at criminal offenses like assault and other things. Then also, they were in the Land Act 122. It was a misdemeanor, meaning it was from 0 to 3 years. It was seen as just minor offenses. Okay. But this act sees it as very grievous. And if you think of the fact that crimes like stealing and others have from 0 to 25 years, you can see that this has come into a certain serious category, and it's supposed to be a big deterrent. There are other provisions like customary land secretariats. I remember we talked about how the chiefs used to manage land and how it was a challenge. They were put into the law. If you look at Section 13 downwards to about Section 18, it talks about creation of what we call the customary land secretariat, meaning now.
Are we going to create it now?
Yes, we are. We have a law. That's one of the challenges we had. It was voluntary. You choose to do it, but now it's in law, and regulations are being passed to guide the establishment of that. It has only good things, and this law, it has some areas that people have certain challenges with, but all in all, we look at it as a great.
I'm just wondering. You seem to have, chewed some of these, some of the, parts of the law very well. Yeah. But I think that we should get some, another time where we take it one after the other and invite our viewers in and hear from them as we do it usually. But the highlights are that now it is more. You're going to be subjected to stringent punishments.
Yes, stringent punishments.
If you sold lands that did not belong to you.
Yes, if you prevented people from enjoying their interest.
And if you work at the Lands Commission and you help somebody to do
something fraudulently, you are also liable to stringent.
Are these the only sanctions?
Oh no, there are sanctions of penalty even if you are a head of family and you don't account for dissipation of land. There are penalties associated with that offense. So around through the act, there's clear lines. In fact, if you look at, I was going to quote again, but look at section 104, section 106, 104.2 and 106.2. It also tells us that if you submit your documents to Lands Commission within 3 months, Lands Commission is supposed to respond, at least let you know whether we are proceeding or not proceeding.
3 months.
3 months. If we don't proceed, then you must deem it as registered. And therefore, this puts pressure on us not to leave things lying. At least you need to hear from us. Exactly. That doesn't mean we would have finished, but at least it would advise the client on whether it's been. And this is novel. It has not been in any law. Now, at least the law is there. You can hold us responsible based on what.
There was the digitization process that you were on. Is there anything in the act that guides?
Yes. So section 73 to 76 will speak to what we call electronic conveyance, and that's what we have been preparing ourselves for all this while, and that's why we have been taking strong steps at digitization. Hopefully, when we are fully ready for it, this is something that our digitization will help us be able to achieve.
Did you have, I don't remember timelines being added to that project?
Yes. So as currently, we can speak to some PPP arrangement as looking at a 5-year program. The minister, current minister, Honorable Abu Jinapo, MP, was with us with a working visit. He's come there twice since he's been a minister, which is also very encouraging, and he's giving us pressure to be able to do this, so we are doing that.
Okay, well, unfortunately for today, I've run out of time, but you know that
before I finish,
this is space that for the Lands Commission, because we want people to have
we have a seminar, a national symposium, and we are happy the journalist of the year getting his new brand new car may drive there, but Samson is being a facilitator for us on Wednesday for a national symposium on this Land Act.
Where people, is it open to everybody?
No, so we because of the COVID and the restrictions, we'll be streaming live on Facebook and all that, but it's for us to look at the way
break it down. I'm very excited about that. So what it means is that we know that we all have land issues. I mean, we've all had a family member or somebody who has been, involved. So Wednesday, make a date. It will be here on JoyNews, I suppose.
Yes, the arrangements being done.
The arrangements have been made. I didn't know that. But yeah, so certainly Wednesday, make a date. But here on the pulse, we talk a lot about land. So we will take our time and break the law down. Send your questions and your thoughts coming through, and then we will have that conversation. Timothy, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good to see you.
I wish that we had a lot more time. We will certainly make time for it.
Thank you for the sustained time you.
It's Timothy Anyedoho, Principal Land Administration Officer at the Lands Commission. In fact, he seems to have all the documents at the Lands Commission in his head. And anytime you ask him, he just gives you the information. Timothy, thank you very much. But our lead story is and it's taking us back to Parliament. We're expecting the Finance Minister, Ken Oforiatta, to answer questions as to whether or not President Akufo-Addo's foreign trip cost the taxpayer 2.8 million Ghanaian cedis when he could actually have used the presidential jet. Well, that has been a conversation that we've had in Parliament. You saw the Defense Minister, Dominic Nitiwo, speak on it with the minority spokesperson on foreign affairs, ranking member on foreign affairs, Okujetu Ablakwa. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo is joining us. Well, has the Finance Minister arrived? Joseph will help us with that answer. Hello, Joseph. Good afternoon, Joseph. Joseph, well, we're expecting the finance minister. We were expecting him at 2. Yes, we were expecting him at 2 p.m.
Precisely. So when the House began sitting around 2:15, getting to 2:20, the indication was given by the Speaker that they needed to tackle a lot of other businesses. Specifically, the House needs to meet behind closed doors as a committee of the whole to deal with issues having to do with the District Assembly Common Fund. So the Speaker asked for directions from the majority bench in terms of what exactly they would want the House to focus attention on. And they said that they would want the House to focus on the approval of the District Assembly Common Fund as a committee of a whole. So the House suspended sitting in order to then sit as a committee of a whole to then deal with issues having to do with the District Assembly Common Fund. And we are still waiting for that closed-door session to end. But funny enough, that specific question from Mr. Blakwa regarding the President's foreign trips is actually not captured on the other paper, which outlines the business of the House for the day. Usually, the House comes up with what is expected to be business for the week, which is what we had from last Friday, which indicated that today, today, Thursday, the Minister for Finance will come respond to questions on the issues having to do with the trip. But it's missing in the other paper for today. When they are done with their closed-door sitting, we would ask further questions on how come it's so.
The minority leader passed behind you right now, Joseph. But then, as it stands now, it looks like we have to wait a little more. What else has been on the table for discussion?
So unlike a lot of other days, today they started sitting at 2 and eventually actually started sitting somewhere around 2:25. From the indication on the other paper, we are expecting the Minister for Finance, although he will not be responding to the specific question having to do with the issue with the President's foreign trips, he's tabled on the agenda here to come respond to questions on what is being done with regards to the temporary advances from the Bank of Ghana to the Government of Ghana for the 2020 financial year. And that's a question by the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu. We are waiting for him to come respond to that, and then they would go ahead and approve the committee of the appointment committee on about 12 deputy ministers designate, which is currently before the House awaiting the necessary approval. So after the closed-door sitting, that's what the House will be focusing on a little later this evening.
Is there anything else, Joseph, that our viewers ought to know before we go away from you?
So there is a lot of effort ongoing on the part of Parliament to ensure that before close of day tomorrow, all the deputy ministers will be approved for the President to then go ahead and swear them in so they can quickly begin work. And the indication is that you recall that yesterday about 12 of them, specifically 11 plus 1 Minister of State, were approved. Today, another 12 will be approved. Tomorrow, another about 14 will be approved. And then, as Parliament has indicated, the work is ongoing to then ensure that the President has the full complement of his team to then get work done. And we're getting indication again that sometime soon, when it comes to the Office of the Special Prosecutor, the committee, at the level of the appointment committee, is putting together the necessary plan to get him vetted as soon as possible so that then again he can get to work and help deal with issues of corruption in the country.
Joseph, thank you very much. I'll leave you to pursue some answers from the closed door session that's ongoing afterwards. Joseph, thank you very much. Joseph Opoku Gakpo is Parliamentary Affairs Correspondent joining us all the way from Parliament. Well, I've run out of time, unfortunately. And I want you to take a look at what's happening at myjoyonline.com. Onion sellers at Agbogloshi have asked a spiritualist to kill me, but I will still relocate them. Henry Quarty, the regional minister. That's a very interesting story you want to click on and share the link with your contacts on social media so they know what's going on. My name is Gifty Ando Apia.